Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would everyone please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Dr. Fox.
Thank you very much, and welcome to, hard to believe, April's caucus. And lots on tap for our discussions for this evening, but jumping right in, looking at April 14th, which is our regularly scheduled board meeting, looking at personnel items that'll be coming up to date for our agenda. We have, at this point, two intermittent and family and medical leave approvals and considerations. We have Mrs. Noelle Giselle. Congratulations on her step movement from step 13 to master's step 15. And we have a activity, the Leo Club. And the Leo Club at the middle school has been in operation, but this is just going through the formalities of the contract to ensure that that's taken care of. But Callis has been doing a great job with that as well. Going through some agenda items, kind of rolling into that, we have our main discussion item for this evening. One of them is to talk about the preparation for the 26-27 general fund budget. So we'll be talking about how you would like us to prepare that for the preliminary final budget, which will be up for consideration for approval on April 14th, at which time then it will sit and be advertised publicly and look for final adoption at the May board meeting. And then that will give us time to ensure that tax bills are sent out, the finalizations of all those requirements are in place for that as well. We have a motion to approve a disciplinary committee recommendation, as well as a discussion this evening on some construction bids for the high school selected renovations that came through, whether or not we want to accept those bids or reject those bids. And that motion will reflect those decisions. And we have a motion for second reading of policy 210.1, medications, and policy 815.1, the use of generative AI. And then based on our policy committee discussions this evening, we'll have policy first read for policy 916, which is volunteers. We have two donations that are on the agenda for consideration, which is a approval for $200 from the Big Brothers Big Sisters program to support a picnic for the end of the year for our program throughout the district. So that's exciting for our kids to have that kind of that summative end of the year celebration of each other. And then a motion to approve a donation from Quandel Energy Solutions that will be a sign that will be out towards the softball field that will read, welcome to Susquenita School District, home of the Blackhawks, PIAA state champions, and then have an ability to hang on the bottom where the first placard will read Field Hockey 2025. And hopefully we continue to add to that sign as they enter into our facilities. So thank you to Quandel Energy. If you notice, there's some signage being placed along campus as well for the mobilization. And since they were mobilizing and placing signs, they agreed to provide, if you accept that donation, a permanent sign for us based upon our design. That kind of rounds out some motions and agenda items today. Any questions on any of those items? All right, hearing none, let's get into some presentations. And we're going to go ahead and start with a little athletic update, followed by some discussion on, I believe, a couple of items we have remaining to talk about in terms of programs and program considerations for the general fund budget as we prepare. Mr. Markowitz, the floor is yours, sir.
All right, so just some spring updates. We got kind of weather starting to pick up a little bit, so we're not getting as many cancellations, which is nice. Baseball, they have a record of 3-4. They won yesterday. They beat St. Joe's 17-12. JV baseball had a game with Newport. I do not think we won that one, but I'm still waiting for the final. The schedule is improving for our JV baseball team. We do not have the numbers to play JV and varsity on the same day, so we had to kind of go ahead and make a separate schedule for JV baseball, but it is working, and they have about 14 games, so it's definitely better than last year. Softball has a record of 5-1. They did beat Schuylkill Valley today 4-3, so they're 6-1. Schuylkill Valley was undefeated, so that's a really big win for us. Track and field, 2 home meets in. Just really, really good. I mean, we're starting to do some instant replay. The programming, the software has been great. We defeated Juniata in our first league meet yesterday. The boys won 76-69, and the girls won 125-15. Excellent progress with our scoreboard software. Like I said, huge thanks to Aubrey and the team. And we have a heck of a team up there in the press box that works very, very hard to make sure that things run smoothly. We actually had some student help yesterday, too, capturing some instant replay stuff. So we're starting to get the students more involved, and it's a really good environment for us. Junior high sports are doing really well right now. Junior high field hockey, they're 1-0. Their first home game is Thursday versus Line Mountain here. And junior high boys soccer, I don't know their result today. I'm still waiting how they did against Shippensburg, but they have a record of 3-1. And our girls soccer team, they tied today with Shippensburg, so they'll be 5-0-1. I did put no goals scored against, but I jinxed them because we gave up a goal tonight. So before tonight, we had no goals scored against us. So they're having a very, very, very good season. Again, you know, as long as weather stays where we need it to stay, you know, the schedule should be pretty smooth moving forward now. So we have an expense sheet here. I'm going to pass out real quick. Okay, so we're now looking at 2 sports adding to our athletics department for next year. Be girls wrestling, and it'd be co-ed golf. We spent a lot of time, Dr. Fox, Mr. Browse, and I, just kind of going over numbers and trying to figure out how much this would cost the district and kind of an idea of how much interest that we do have right now. So this expense sheet right here is basically lists everything that we would have to pay for that particular sport. We're using it based on our coaching matrix as well. So all of that is very accurate. So girls wrestling, if you look at the head coach, you'll see a number of 5,000, but then with Peasers, you gotta multiply it by 1.42 or whatever it is. That's that parentheses number that's actually costing the district. So we just want to make sure we're clear there. Then you got the assistant coach, you got the head coach for junior high, you have the assistant coach for junior high. So it's 4 total paid coaches that we would have for the girls wrestling program. Transportation, we average about 4 trips per season. They're about, if you look at Roar's busing fees, on average, it's about $225. So we said that would cost us about $900 for transportation. Entry fees, we typically do 3 to 4 tournaments. I'm going to go on the higher end and say we'll do 4. The typical average is about $300 per event. So we're looking at $1,200 in fees. Supplies is not a lot. Headgear is something that they'll definitely need. That's just over $1,000 at $35 for 30 pieces of headgear. Officials, again, averaging 5 home events. Could be 4, could be 6, but we're probably around 5. It's $145 per event for an official, and that's going to be $725 for the season for girls wrestling officials. And again, we don't worry about the away ones, just the home ones. Uniforms. So the boosters went ahead and bought brand new uniforms for girls wrestling. So we actually wouldn't need new uniforms until 2031. Those uniforms are about $2,700, $2,700. So the yearly, without the uniforms, because we're not going to be worrying about uniforms until 2031, we're looking at about $23,755. With the uniforms, we're looking at $26,380 for the girls wrestling program. If we drop down, and then if any questions about that, we could do that and then move down to golf. That's fine.
So maybe you said this and I missed it. So how many athletes is that for both programs?
So for girls wrestling, right now we're looking at around from what I've talked to the coaches and talked to the players and who's returning, we're looking at about, between the junior high and the varsity girls wrestling program, we're looking about 17 to 18 girls right
Yeah,
now.
but I don't want to do it now, because
Yeah.
if we add it as a sport, it's going to grow, obviously. So what
course.
would be our maximum that we would be having in terms of, and what would that number be?
Maximum amount for varsity, maximum amount
Yeah.
for junior. I would say for varsity, you want to keep the number at comparable to what everybody else is doing. If we have too many numbers, they're just not going to wrestle because a lot of schools are growing right now. So I'd say we're 15 and 20 would probably be the number where that's max. We can't go past that number because we're going to go over budget with the uniforms and everything. And then, entry fees, all that stuff kind of goes up. So we're looking at that number. Junior high, we're looking at 15. Same number with that is around the 15 number.
Right, so, and what is the number? So now you're saying it's a total of 15 to 17, 17 to 18 for both, correct now?
Yes.
Right? And
Yeah.
so we would be looking at potentially going up to 35. And the only reason I ask that is because I know in a lot of other high schools, this girls' program it's exploding.
This
So I
sport
think we
is-
need to be prepared that this number is going to be higher, realistically going to be higher, and not base it just on what we're doing now, right?
Right. And
So-
right now, it's the fastest growing sport in PIAA
Yeah, right.
is girls wrestling. So, it's getting very, very popular.
So even if our numbers went up, our head coach, assistant coach,
That stays.
they'll all stay the same. So they'll all be
Transportation stay.
transportation would essentially stay the same, right?
Yeah,
Because that
unless we
will
have
fit.
70 kids, we need to book.
Entry fees, is that per team? So
Per
does-
team.
So
Per
it's not
team.
going to matter for numbers there. So the headgear would be, you're already doing 35,
We're already doing
or
35.
at 30.
Yep.
So that's okay. So officials will stay the same.
Yep.
So your uniforms.
It's the uniforms.
So, and what is the price per singlet? Like, how did you come to that number?
That's what the boosters spent this year
Okay.
on the uniforms.
Yeah, so
Yep.
do you know what they bought? Like, what was?
Let me see if I can pull up the invoice.
Because I know you're saying we're not going to need uniforms until 2020, whatever, but that's
2031.
presuming we don't have any more girls, which,
Right. A lot of times, though, like if we add a couple girls and we're out of the boosters, typically will step in and pay for like an extra uniform if we need it. That has happened before.
But are they going to do that once we sponsor it as a sport?
Well,
I mean, we don't do that with any other boosters, make them pay for uniforms.
let me see here. Okay, so the singlets we're looking at around $70 per singlet, and then for the shorts you're looking at about $40.
So 110 total? Mm-hmm. And right now you have enough for how many girls? 17?
We have enough for. Give me a second. I wrote that down. We have enough for 20 right now.
Okay.
Are your shorts part of the uniform, or is it just a singlet? So would it be the 75 or would it be the 110? I think it's just the 75 times 35, I think gets us pretty close to the number that's there.
Yeah, a lot of times the shorts, either they'll get them or they'll get their own shorts or whatever it is. But
Yeah,
the singlet is-
75 times 35 is your 26, 25 that's in there for
26, yeah.
uniforms, so. So we factored in the 35.
Okay. So would we be better off looking at that 26,000 number to be able to manage growth?
Yeah, that accounts for
Okay. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. So co-ed golf, head coach, and again, these numbers are all based off the matrix. Parentheses is with the Peasers added to it. So the transportation, that number we got, it's quite a formula. It's 35 miles per trip. Now we're looking at going to the Newport. We're going to check out fees there. Their golf course, the fees are pretty good. So 35 miles per trip, 72 cents per gallon. We're looking at $25.20 per van times 2 vans, 9 weeks, 3 times per week. That's how we got that number.
Before you go any further, what's that based on, numbers of athletes? How many athletes?
Yeah, I got that. For golf, we just assumed 10 because golf is very variable driven based on the number of athletes.
it is.
As opposed to, wrestling and stuff like that,
Yes.
which is more of a kind of
Yes.
just a fixed cost. So yeah, I'm sorry, this is based off of 12 co-ed golfers.
The green fees, if we look at the Newport course, including membership, the number's about $13.38. Balls, tees, we're looking at $8.50. Now, $8.50 is a number we give for supplies for our sports. So they would get the $8.50 for balls and tees. Hats, $300. And the uniforms would include a golf bag and a shirt. We would get those back, you know, at the end of the season. That's going to be about $3,600. The bags would be about $3,000, and the shirts would be about $600. So yearly, we're looking at just over $10,000. If you add the uniforms with the golf bags, we're looking at just under $14,000.
Unrelated, but what about junior high football? Are we also looking at that, or? Because would that be we're looking to put that in the budget for next year, correct?
I think we wanted to do one more year.
Okay, then never mind.
Girls wrestling had 2 years, kind of a test run. I kind of want to do the same thing with our junior high football. Yeah.
And the girls wrestling is in the proposed budget. Currently, golfing is not, correct?
No, neither are in. We can add them in
Okay.
to the preliminary for the board review, but yeah, we'd like to get some guidance tonight on whether to include it or exclude it.
I think I've just thrown my thoughts out there. I've kind of said this before, and Mr. Browse sort of reinforced that by saying about how much variable is built into the golfing thing. My concern is that, and I'm not an anti-golfer, so just let me preface this by saying that I think this is going to, my concern is this will drive into a big money pit for us, because right now, the golfers that we have are those students that have already been playing golf or doing whatever, and they are absorbing that cost on their own. Once we open this up, your numbers have the potential to explode, the same way that they can with girls wrestling, maybe not to that level. And then once that happens, because all these costs are variable based on the number of golfers, it can really drive the costs. I still would rather, if we really have our heart set on having golf be an opportunity for athletes here, I would prefer looking into a co-op rather than having us put money into another sport, also keeping in mind that we may be funding junior high football in another year. I think.
So we are exploring the co-op, actually. So we already reached out to Newport, and I'm in talks with West Perry right now. So we're trying to see something. I know Newport's a little bit worried because if we add too many golfers, it's going to up them a classification.
Mm-hmm.
Golf only has 2 classifications,
Right.
So it's going to push them up one. But West Perry's numbers aren't as big, so that's something we are in the works talking to and kind of see what options are. But that is definitely something that we're looking to.
Yeah, and I stem my comments on this from understanding the way swimming is. And as a parent of an independent swimmer, I never came before the board and said, hey, let's offer swimming as a sport, because I knew it would be a money pit. It's expensive, and because you have to lease the site to practice, and you've got to get the students to the site to practice, and then you've got to have, I know we're looking at Newport greens fees, but my understanding is they didn't practice at Newport before because of the quality of the course up there. It's not that great. So then what if they want to go to a different course to be able to? That's my concerns on going in the round of golf. I think I already talked about girls wrestling. I think that seems to be a logical offering here at the school because of boys wrestling already being offered. And, the facility is already here. We already have the infrastructure in place.
If we went the co-op route, the district would still pick up costs as opposed to independent golfing route, correct?
Yeah, we each have to. Cooperatives, there is a share in the fee of the total cost. And, the downside is if we co-op with West Perry or we co-op with Newport, then it's whose name do you play under? And it depends. Then they're not going to be necessarily competing under Susquenita's name, and that's the downside.
I think the question before us tonight, although this is not a voting meeting, is the district needs direction as to whether or not we want to have girls wrestling and/or co-ed golf added to the budget before our before we review it next week. So I guess if I could see like a thumbs up type thing, how many would be in favor of adding girls wrestling to our budget? And that's unanimous. How many would be in favor of us adding co-ed golf to our budget? I don't see any thumbs up. Or maybe one. Yeah, it's a possibility. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. It doesn't look like a co-op is possible this year, or is that a possibility this year?
I wouldn't have a lot of faith in it. West
Some-
Perry's still trying to figure out their numbers, if they're going to have enough. And, I've said this before, golf is, wrestling, I'm going to say, because a lot of people will come to me, we need to add this, we need to add that. There's a big demand with girls wrestling. Golf, there hasn't been a huge demand for that, and I'm just being honest.
So we have at least one board member, maybe more, that perhaps next year, if you had some numbers, I would be willing to entertain the possibility of co-op golf. But at this point, no golf, but yes to the girls wrestling.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things to consider too is because of the popularity of girls wrestling, we draw a lot of revenue from people coming to watch girls wrestling. We won't have that with golf. We're not going to be getting any revenue because we don't have a golf course here. So we're not going to be hosting anything here.
I
So
think
some of our
that's-
costs of wrestling are offset by the revenue.
That's a really good point.
And we could build a pool first. How about that?
And that's a great point. And we had a regional champion. I mean, we had somebody that won regionals as a girls wrestler as a sophomore who's probably competing for state championships in the next 2 years. The girls are improving every single day. I just see a lot of potential with the girls wrestling program, to be honest.
When would the golf, I don't know what you call it, a season? Is it a fall,
fall.
spring? It's fall. Okay.
And that's sort of another challenge too, because we're already sort of competing with a pretty heavy fall season in terms of the divvying up of our male and female athletes. But
Thank you very much, Mr. Markowitz.
You're welcome.
So thank you for the discussions. Thank you, Mr. Markowitz and Mr. Browse. And I think we're going to shift gears a little bit now as we continue with our discussions on some budgetary preparations. As we talk about revenue, and we talk about how you would like us to prepare this budget in terms of revenue and revenue options. And again, as you heard from me several times throughout our budget presentations, the absolute need to continue to look at the options afforded as a board to be able to utilize elements of Act One, right? Act One is your ability as a school board to exercise your taxing authority to see what percentage that is afforded as the adjusted Act One index comes out from a formula generated from the Pennsylvania Department of Education to allow a school district to keep up with inflationary costs. I know there has been some discussion in the last board meeting for us to prepare 3 different options for you to take a look at those options. And that's where we're kind of at tonight, and then to discuss how you would like us to prepare the preliminary final budget, whether that be with option A, or option 1, option 2, option 3, or worst case scenario, to prepare all 3 of them for you to take consideration on, which I will say is a little bit of a challenge for our business office to prepare all 3, because those documents do involve a lot of work to prepare for. And not that they're opposed to that, but if there is a consensus to eliminate 1 or 2, it certainly would behoove us to do so and have a discussion on that element. So I know Mr. Browse has prepared a good document for us to take a look at. He has that in front of you for some discussion purposes this evening. It is an interesting phenomenon when you take a look specifically at our school district as we continue, because we are one of 88 school districts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that is multi-county jurisdiction. So multi-county considerations are always in play. And we get our numbers and information from the State Tax Equalization Bureau, or STEB. And we know that millage rates inside of a multi-county are subject to change every year, regardless of any tax increase or Act 1 index increase or referendum that a school district or school board decides to pass. Because of that, those numbers are really sensitive to that rebalancing formula and that baseline methodology that's used, and used for values associated with both market values and assessed values. And it really does kind of cause that teeter-totter effect, if you will, throughout the multi-counties. So, Mr. Browse, I'm going to toss it over if you want to maybe walk through a little bit of those options on that document and see if there's any questions associated with that, and to see what kind of that basis is or what the pulse is as we look for some direction. Thank you.
All right, so just, I gave you guys a handout there, and we'll just kind of start left to right. I know it might be a little bit confusing. I'll try to do my best to explain what all sort of taken place here this year. But obviously, the first column is last year's millage rates that, you know, everybody would have saw on their tax bills. The rebaseline, so that's where the step comes in. So that's all based on the market value of the property. Has nothing to do with assessed value. It's only market value. So again, that gets fed into the formula automatically based on the prior year's market values. That alone changed Dolphin's percentage by 4.2%. So not even factoring any assessed value changes or anything, just the sheer two numbers of the market value changed. They're showing a 4.2% increase.
Jason, but can I ask a quick question there, maybe?
Yep.
Right now, because Perry County just reassessed, their assessed values and their market values are very much aligned. Even though it is, this part is based on the market value.
Correct.
Those numbers are very close because of that reassessment.
Yeah, they're much closer. Actually,
Right.
the assessed values are actually higher than the market values right now.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yep.
But at Dauphin County, because they have not had any assessment.
Correct.
Their market value, which this is based on, is way higher than the assessed values of
Correct.
those
Their market
homes.
value is almost double what their assessed values
Right,
are.
but when
Yep.
they go to figure out their taxes, the millage is going to be multiplied by the assessed value, not by the market value that's driving this
Correct.
rebalancing. Okay.
Correct, yep. Yep, so the rebaseline there are the millages based on just the market value change and the millage there. You see Perry County dropped to 6.88. That is because of the reassessment. So the baseline for both Perry and Dauphin, you know, you see those numbers there. So then you asked me to prepare three different options. So looking at the revenue neutral, keeping our revenue the same as what we got last year. And just as a quick reminder, we're currently sitting, you know, if you factor in wrestling, we're at a $1.327 million deficit based on the revenue neutral option of one. That's what currently is in the spreadsheet that I had shared with you earlier. So in option one, revenue neutral, it shows as a decrease to Perry County. It gets a little bit wonky, but it does show a Dauphin County increase of 5.3%. So that's just, you know, how it is whenever you roll in the assessed value, factor in the market value. That's just how the numbers come up there from option one. I'm going to skip ahead to option three. That's the full Act 1 index, and if you remember correctly, the Dauphin Act 1 index max is 4.8, and the Perry County is 5.5. And again, it hit the Dauphin 4.8 before it hit the Perry County's 5.5. So a 4.8% increase. Again, that's on the rebaseline. So a 4.8 increase will actually show a 9.2% millage increase from what was on the tax bill last year to what an Act 1 index would be this year for Dauphin County. Perry's a little bit wonky just because of, you know, the whole reassessment, but that would, you know, they would get hit with about a 2.9% increase on that. And then, so then what I did for the 50% of Act 1 is I said, okay, well, what would a 2.4% increase be for a Dauphin? Again, that's 2.4 on top of the rebalancing percentage, and that would be option two. Option 1 would garner us $465,000 of additional revenue. Option 2, which is the 50% Act 1, would get us $168,000 of additional revenue. So that's the revenue impact based on the different options that you guys had requested.
What would option 1 garner us?
It's revenue neutral, so flat to what we received
Did you
this year.
just say
from revenue.
465 something?
Oh, option 3, the Act 1 index?
Oh, 465,000.
Yeah,
I see.
465,000, yep.
So why isn't 50%
Yeah, I saw that.
half?
Yeah,
of
you
it?
would think that. That's the math behind the thing. I
Okay.
thought that too, but yeah, when I ran the numbers, that's just what it came out to be.
Would it be possible to run an option where Perry County was at 0 instead of 0.8 minus? And then Dolphin would be, I don't know, 5.5 or something? It would garner us a little increase, but it would remain the same tax, same mills as Dolphin County. Is that possible, or as currently in Perry County?
So the mills are a little weird in Perry County, anyhow, because of the reassessment. Yes, I can run that, but yeah, you're right. It would, I don't know what it would give, maybe $50,000 or something like that.
So, I mean, for the Dauphin County people, I feel bad, and sometimes it's Perry County gets hit. Dauphin County's got hit the last 2 years. There would be no way we could not have a increase in taxes for Dauphin County unless the district would take a considerable financial loss. That's correct. Is that correct?
Yes, yep.
So the best we could do would be, if we were to choose option 1, which would give us, obviously, revenue neutral, would be a minus 0.8% in Perry County and 5.3% in Dauphin County. That's the best we could do without taking a financial loss as a district, which we're currently projected over $1 million deficit.
I think it's also important to note, if we don't do anything, that inhibits our ability to hit that Act 1 index in future years. So if we didn't do revenue neutral, it would we would lose money, it would decrease the millage, and then our ability to tax in the future, should we need something large, would be impaired because of that, like exponentially. So I think that's important too for financial management.
No, I think it is. If I understand this correctly, if we were to raise taxes at the max that we possibly can with the Act 1 index, the maximum we could recover is $465,000. And we are over, what, $1.5 million in projected deficit as is, correct?
Yeah,
1.3
1.3. And just to answer your question, if we did hold Dauphin County at the same tax rate they were last year, we would lose $640,000 of revenue. Keeping the millage the same.
Okay.
Yes.
But it would decrease our millage then,
Correct. It would decrease Perry County.
It sets us back.
Correct. Absolutely. Everything sets us back.
So I have a question. Is the 5.3% based off of the original Dauphin County millage rate or the rebaseline millage rate?
So that 5.3 in that line is based off of last year, so it's an increase to their last year's millage rate. The line below that in the columns out to the right is the Act 1 comparison number to the rebaselined number. So the top line is what the increase would be to their last year's millage rate.
So how does the rebaseline? So it had to get rebaselined, so that's what should be showing up now, correct? On their, so the 25-26 is what was last year?
Yes.
Correct. Then there was the rebaseline,
Yep.
correct?
So they would be at 26.7257, yes, which is a
Right.
4.2% increase to
So that's what
last
it is
year's.
currently.
Correct.
So then the 5.3%, is that based on what it is currently? So the 27.0058 is a 5.3% over what it is currently, or what it is, last year.
Yeah,
See
what it
I'm-
was last year. That line is all based against last year's number.
So what is the percentage different over what it is currently? Because 5.3%
Yeah, go to
looks
the
like.
next one over. That's where he does show it.
Yeah.
See the one, it's 2.4. If you go to, if you
1%.
go to 50%,
Yeah,
yeah,
so it's only, so really, I think if you look at it, it's only to what their current millage rate is now for Dauphin County, it's really only a 1% difference to Dauphin County.
or 2.4 if
Or
you go
2,
50%.
but that's not shown here at the bottom. Like, so I think
This?
it's, no, and that one that's revenue neutral.
No, yeah. What I'm saying is if we go across, it, to your point, it's 1%, 2.4, and 4.8.
Right, but I think when people are hearing, oh, it's a 5.3%.
Right.
It's really not.
Correct,
It's
yeah.
only a 1%, a 2.4%, or a 4.8%.
Yeah, I think that's important.
To the re-baseline.
To the rebaseline.
But if me as a
which-
taxpayer, I'm gonna get my tax bill from last year, compare it to my tax bill potentially
Right,
this
but I
year.
think that's a really important distinction.
Correct, it
For
is.
them to know is that, yes, this is what it was, but according to STEB and the reassessment, here's what you're currently paying, and this is how it compares to what your current rebaseline is, because they probably really don't look at that
Mm-hmm.
right now to know that it adjusted that small fraction.
Correct.
I think Marcy brings up a really good point, because what we're voting on is not a 6.7, if we decide to go with the 50%, we're not voting on a 6.7% increase for Dauphin County. We're voting on a 2.4, because they're already going to have, regardless of what we do, their taxes are going up based on that rebaseline. Yeah, so I think that's a really good point, Marcy. I think
We're not, and I think to your point, Leanne.
option one is 1% for them. Option two for Dauphin County would be 2.4, and the full Act One would be 4.8. More than what we would be voting for to affect the taxes.
And certainly, I think that speaks to looking at the issues associated with the School Code 672 and the problems of having two counties and the problems of us not even really even being able to see the full benefits of an Act One, whereas in other counties, you certainly can see the full benefits of an Act One. So it not only penalizes a particular group, if you will, to some degree, a county within our school district separated by a river, but it certainly penalizes our ability and hampers our ability to be able to generate revenue based upon Act One and even keep up with inflationary cost. So there has been a House bill that hasn't really gotten a lot of traction that I mentioned before, which is Senate Bill 791, and it's been referred to the Education Committee on June 3rd of 2025, and it does speak to allowing a school district to treat each county the same. And that certainly, despite all of those things, I think that would certainly allow for an equal playing field when it comes to the issues associated certainly with 672.1, .5, and all those entities related to the current school code. So anybody listening to this, please, we can certainly reach out, but it means a lot more when a citizen reaches out to, your representative and your senator to speak to that and ask for some consideration of that bill, at least to bring it to the floor in either House or Senate for movement and for passage or adoption. And now certainly the right time to be able to do that.
So we will not be voting on this until the May meeting, is that correct? Or do we vote on this next week?
So you'll vote on the preliminary next week.
Next week,
And the
okay.
final in May. So
So
it
you-
could change if you wanted it to change.
Correct.
Between April and May, excuse me.
So originally, we had said these were the three options. We wanted to see, if I understood you correctly, you were hoping maybe we would be able to narrow this down
Please.
to two or one. Or, I don't know how to go about doing that this evening.
And just another when does the limitation come that we can always reduce the amount, but we cannot add in? Is that in the preliminary? Once we vote on the preliminary, right?
Yeah, so you'll vote on a preliminary next week, and we'll have to have either 1 or 3 documents fully printed for signature, and then whichever one you guys vote on, then we'll have to sign it and then put out for the public, and then you next month, then you vote the final, and you can reduce it
We
at
can
the
reduce it,
final,
but we
or
cannot increase it.
You cannot increase it, the
Right,
way I
after the,
understand,
once
correct.
we vote on the preliminary.
So can I hear from board members, which of these we definitely want to have next week as an option for the preliminary?
Personally, I would be going for option 2.
I would be okay with option 1. Does anyone want to see option 3 as an option? So then can we have option 1 and 2 in the preliminary? Is that doable? Any objections to that, anyone? Okay.
Let me just throw out this, because you had brought it up to Jason. Would you prefer, instead of option 1, to have them put in where Perry County was sitting at 0%, maybe giving that as the option 1, that as opposed to,
I think I would. What does the rest of the group think? Instead of, if we chose, yeah, okay. If we chose option 1 now, it would show a decrease in Perry County taxes and an increase in Dauphin County. If we set Perry County to 0 in option 1, then it would basically show 0 and an increase in Dauphin. And I would prefer that than have a decrease in Perry.
But a lower increase in Dolphin.
no.
Well, it would still be,
a higher
it would still
increase.
be around 1%. Am I correct, Jason?
It's going to be a little higher than that, probably.
Yeah, it'll be higher than 1%. If you want to get Perry County to 0, then Dolphin would probably go to closer to 2.
1.02, or would it go way up?
No, it would probably go up by a percentage. So it wouldn't be too much different than option 2 currently, but it is in between.
Beg your pardon?
It gets weighted more.
So do we go with option 1 as is, or option 1 with 0% at Perry, as opposed to minus 0.8? 0? Are we okay with 0? All right, so we have option 1 at 0 for Perry, and then option 2, the 50% Act 1 increase, will be the 2 options for us to consider next week to approve for the preliminary budget. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Browse. Good job in your preparation. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk some construction numbers. Or talk construction updates, rather. Thanks, sir. All right, I will move through this relatively quickly. It should be a very similar update than what we received in March, with a few additional steps. Just kind of a graphic organizer here on page 2, a little bit of some of the comprehensive upgrades that we are doing, replacement of the chiller, new air handlers, critical pipe insulation that you'll see in the middle school, as well as some restroom modernization. And here at the high school, you'll start to see, and at the middle school, there's the utilization of floor ceiling with the temp lock. That's going to reduce some of the heating and cooling costs. High school, you'll see some FS repair, some new color pattern being placed, and that paint is actually going to help seal some of the FS or system that's on there. High school restroom upgrades, you'll start to see some new sinks, some paint on the walls, and some much-needed partition enlargement for the doors that are much needed as well. The elementary school, you'll see some flooring upgrades, replacement of some of the bubbling vinyl flooring that was once there. So just real quick, why do we conduct some of these studies? We did a comprehensive feasibility study. We actually did 2 of them over the course of approximately 2 years. And the most recent one was done by an independent engineering firm to really look at some of these deferred maintenance and really the age of our buildings. And overall, the studies revealed that our buildings are in good condition and are solid. But because of the age of a lot of things, even like myself, some things need to happen, and you need to spend some time to repair and update. So this provided us with some immediate needs to be able to address. And because of that, we were able to take some of these needs and utilize some of the GISA laws, which is guaranteed energy savings, and selected through a comprehensive process our guaranteed energy savings agreement company, Quandel, from a very lengthy process that we conducted. So one of the questions always comes, how are we financing this? This is certainly based on our $15 million small bank note. This $15 million small bank note was rooted when the interest rates in arbitrage enabled us to do so based upon the current IRS regulations and rates. So because of that, there are spending guidelines that we need to follow, and we are following those practices currently right now and in place to be able to address that. The primary purpose of the small bank note was our $1.38 million obligation that we have to Cumberland Perry Area Career and Technical Center that we've provided, and that building project is underway. So there are future projects that need to be started by 2027, and this will address some of those needs for those projects and the spending obligations. So just some basic construction updates. Mobilization has began. You'll see throughout the building some of the signage, some of the signs that say deliveries, so that's beginning. Walkthroughs have occurred last Friday where we were able to take a look for some of the subcontractors, to be able to talk to each other. Cargo boxes or Connex boxes, as they're called, or construction boxes, will soon be deployed strategically and locked and secured in certain areas throughout campus. There will be a construction office trailer that will be located as electric is now ready, and it will be placed at the middle school area, right where kind of that parallel parking area once was. And that parallel parking area for Shield Driving School has been relocated over to the elementary school near the porta potty, and permits are sought and they're secured currently right now, and we are just awaiting the opportunities. There might be some second shift work going on in the middle school where they will actually remove the tiles, begin cabling of wires, so when they remove those tiles, all the wiring isn't going to kind of fall on them, so they're doing some mobilization and readiness. Our job at the end of the school year will be to label certain things and tape up certain desks, because they will move all of that and stage that into the gym area and label it by classroom as they begin that process. And at the high school, part of the job is going to be, we're going to take all of this stuff off of those casework, off of the ledges near the windows, and remove those stuff away from that windowsill, because they'll be removing windows and working their way throughout the building to replace those windows. Lots of superintendent's oversight when it comes to this, not me, the superintendent, but the superintendent for the main general contractor, which is Pyramid Construction, which will have the overall responsibilities to make sure that the subcontractors are meeting the benchmarks and the thresholds as well as the safety requirements. All contractors need to have clearances, and those clearances are being monitored through a construction website called Procore, at which time our Director of Safety and Security is monitoring those clearances to ensure that they meet those requirements. Work is ready to begin on June 2nd, 2026, without hesitation. So just some ongoing steps, ongoing weekly meetings that we're having with Quandel and a lot of the general contractors and subcontractors. Final color selections, I'll ask for your approval at Tuesday's meeting for the final color selections. So thank you for your participation in those final color selections. What I will do is take kind of that rendering of the building and your color selections based upon those that were located, the swatches painted outside, mark it on here in a clear document, and ask for your approval formally at Tuesday's meeting, which is exciting. So let's talk a little bit about our second project that we were working on. And this second project was the high school selected renovation project. It consisted of approximately 4 rooms at the high school. These 4 rooms at the high school were to serve a flex space, multi-purpose room, could be used for STEM-related classes, could be used for a multitude of different clubs or meetings and organizations, and desire to have a kind of a concrete pad located outside of the cafeteria where students could access that door and go out with supervision during lunchtime or other activities. It was to clean up the athletic activity storage areas and to organize that and build more space as well as an athletic director's office, and then to repurpose the athletic director's current office into a green room where students in the performing arts could do hair, makeup, change, and have that space for themselves. And then the space adjacent, which was the old graphics lab or photography darkroom, was to be repurposed and used for a theater building room. Allows them the chance to costume design and costume create and have, again, some spaces to be able to build and create. We like those plans. Those plans were, the project was publicly advertised. We had a bid walkthrough meeting that generated a tremendous amount of interest that I was extremely excited about on March 12th of 2026. We had our bid opening and it occurred in a public meeting on March 26, 2026 at 2 o'clock at the district office, actually in room 133 at the middle school. This is not part of our GISA project and subject to change orders, so the bids were open. The bid results are in your hand currently. We only had 2 general contractor bids. We had 1 mechanical bid and 1 electrical bid. And the bids came out from our engineered projection. That engineered projection was to be about $403,000, and the totality came out roughly around $800,000. So we saw basically the project increase twofold based upon what we're at. Several reasons. Certainly that could be happening in the phenomenon. The project itself isn't really large. It's a smaller project. We thought it was in a really good time when we started to bid in March, so it wasn't quite summer, but maybe we needed to do it a little earlier. Electrical contractors, even from our initial presentation that the architects did to when the architects presented to us, they put a 5% escalator as well as an additional electrical escalator, but we really didn't even come close to what those electrical costs are. And electrical costs have been rising tremendously. So there's a couple of options we can do. The total, if we accepted all these lowest bids, would be $808,273. We could work with our architect and work with Pannoni to redesign these plans, although I honestly believe there's not a lot to be able to value engineer and change. There might be some components, there might be some smaller things to be able to change up, but I don't believe it's that scale of project to be able to get some of the cost back of re-engineering. We could rebid at another time. We have big costs associated with that, advertising costs that are associated with that and the process, and it could yield a better result, or it could yield the same result, or a worse result. We could accept it and accept the bids as is and move forward with the construction of the project, knowing full well that there could be some change orders along the way, so the price may not be guaranteed like it is in a GISA project. We could postpone the flex space and the athletic and activity storage space and have our talented maintenance team, who's well prepared to conduct the majority of the performing arts spaces and renovations. I believe our team can tackle those 2 spaces. We had an opportunity to walk through those spaces. We had an opportunity to look at what that may be. Mr. Howell has been pricing out some materials with his team. And materials alone, minus some mirrors and some other electrical, we're roughly around $5,000, $6,000 for material, knowing full well that that could go up. That does not account for one of the biggest drivers in costs that we're going to see, which might and may and it will require a contractor, whether that be a quote or a sealed bid based upon the number, which would be to put a bathroom in where the athletic director's office supply room is currently. Because that requires, there is no second story to the building. It's exposed to the roof. Would require a vent, then going down into the floor to tap into the sewer. That work is extensive. That work is some work we cannot do, and that requires being able to get a contracted expert in to be able to do that work. I'm going to pause. Mr. Funk has the microphone, and allow him to talk here.
Thank you very much. Just to follow up with Dr. Fox, after we got the bid back and recovered from that, we wanted to make sure that one of our goals, and even the board expressed, the theater department needs space. And so we met as an admin team. It's like, well, what can we do ourselves, as Dr. Fox said. So our first step was to get Mrs. Epley and Mrs. Krismer, our two directors, and did a walkthrough of what we proposed of how we're going to redo the athletic director's office with the restroom and the room workspace across the hall that used to be Mr. Raber's room. And they gave a lot of good input and were very pleased with what we were proposing and at a more, hopefully, affordable cost, and that our guys can do except for the plumbing. So we got their feedback, and they were still very excited on what we can do with that space and pretty much triple the theater space that they currently have now. So I just wanted to share that we brought those two in because they're the ones that's going to be living it on a regular basis.
Thank you. It may take us a little bit of time to be able to do that because we do have other aspects and different things throughout the summer to be able to do. One of the things that certainly enable us more than a different contractor is that our maintenance team can work during the school year as well. We already have clearances. They already know what areas. They already know what they can do. It's in kind of that technical education realm, so the noise shouldn't be a particular issue, and if it is, they know when to stop and when not to, and they can communicate. When the weather is inclement, we can move, and when there's projects that take precedent over it or emergencies, then we're able to shift. I think my estimate that I provided to you of 6,000 is a little high. There might be some ancillary materials and electrical work, but primarily it is roughly around $3,300 is what the ballpark is right now of material. And some of that material we already have in place. Some of that material we are able to have and already have that we use in other projects, or we needed a smaller amount and we have some in reserve. So we're able to repurpose some of those materials and be able to use. So I'm going to stop for a second before I go on to the next slide and see what questions you may have at this point. Go ahead, please.
So the $3,000, is that including, or maybe you already said this, the mirrors and all of the new countertops and that kind of stuff?
So it will not account for the mirrors.
Okay.
So we need to look at what electrical components are necessary for those mirrors, what type of mirrors. Is it better to have a stationary mirror or a mirror with a light built in? What does that look like? Is it safe? Where are those aspects? So no, it does not include those.
Okay.
So we're seeing those come in at anywhere from 200 to 400, depending on what
Okay.
you want.
Okay.
It does include the countertop, and the countertop will be custom made.
And we still get to pick those colors, right? I'm kidding. Okay.
We do not get to pick those colors. We're trying to do this.
We do not get to pick the
We
colors?
will not, you can pick the color on the wall that we are going to paint, but the color of the laminate will be black. It will be
Does it
produced
have
by
to
a
be?
local contractor
Okay.
who will cut that to form.
Well, I know, but sometimes there's a grade of laminate that comes in more than one color. That's okay. That's not more my next question. In terms of the bidding for the plumbing, I know you and I had talked about the problem with the bid process that we had to go through here is that there's so many hoops to jump through for that. Would they not need to do that on a smaller scale thing for just doing a bathroom? Can
So-
that then open up the door for more local contractors to be able to do?
Well, it depends on the cost.
Okay,
Anything 13,000, under what, 13.2, I believe, you do not need even to have a bid. Anything 13 to like 23.9, roughly, I don't have those particular numbers in front of me, requires 3 bids. They could be emailed or telephonic bids, but anything over that is a sealed bid.
yeah, so I guess what I'm asking is, do you predict that this would fall under the non-sealed, that they wouldn't have to jump through those extra? Because didn't you think that that was part of the problem of?
I
this-
think prevailing wage is an issue when you look at some governmental projects.
Yeah.
I think having bonds and being able to have a lot of the paperwork necessary for these types of projects, because it is an extremely large project and an extremely lucrative project, that, yes, it probably did maybe shy away some bidders from that because of the costs.
Yes, I guess what I'm asking is, do you think that this bathroom that we're adding will likely fall under this sealed bid threshold?
I would have to get back to you on that. I don't know for a fact. I think it's going to, we'll need to get more information on
And then
that.
my last question is, where's Scott going to go?
Yeah, so there's different options.
Okay.
And we're looking at those options.
I'm thinking about you, buddy.
You know, one of the options is where we were gonna have the flex space be.
Yeah.
Other options, you know, could also happen. So that's one option. It gives them a little bit of a larger space there. But the one good thing we have here is we have space. There are some good rooms here at the high school. And it's, where can he find a space where kids can come and be able to talk with him? Where can he have meetings? Where's the accessibility to different facilities? Where is he going to be able to have support where he doesn't feel like he's isolated from everybody because he is a part of the school? So having those things are all important when it comes to selection.
And then my final question is, the number that we had originally, which was that 400,000
Yes.
price range, where are we falling? If we were to not spend any of that at all,
Yes.
where are we at in terms of the amount of money that we need to have expended from this loan by 2027? Will we already be over that threshold?
Yes.
Okay, so we're good. We don't really need to spend that money right now.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a great question.
So I guess Leanne asked my second question, so I'll go back to my first question. You know, kind of, first, I think it's great that we are problem solving and you guys have come up with a plan of how we might be able to do this differently. I guess my question is what kind of time frame, and have we thought through kind of what that might look like so it's not an interruption to where all of the athletic supplies are going to go? So when we talk about the cages, like that was a big thing and they were going to reorganize that. So then where is that going to get distributed to? Because I think one of the conversations that we heard was, well, maybe over the summer while this work was being done, that could be put in classrooms. Well, now if it's going to be done throughout the year, it can't go in the classrooms if we're having students in the classrooms. So where is that going to now get redistributed to so that the work can be done, and it's not like it's being done in a shortened time frame, it's going to take a much longer extended time frame. And so what does that look like so that we're now taking care of other valuables that we've put money into that need to be monitored and taken care of?
Yes, complex question. So let me take the first part. First part is, the athletic director's supplies in the athletic director's office will be relocated to a spot that will be his temporary permanent home. That can be done next week if needed. That will not delay his ability to function and will not delay his ability to be able to be out of there for construction purposes. As a matter of fact, if you wanted the green light, you could give the green light and we can move forward. and we can move that relatively quickly. The question about the athletic and activity spaces and cages themselves, the bottom line is the bottom line. It needs to be cleaned. Those areas need to be cleaned. And what direction I need from you as a collective board is, what do you want us to do? This is a great question. With old so we're going to throw away broken items that are in there that are no longer needed. We're going to dispose of it. So you're going to see stuff in the dumpster. And if there's a trophy in there that's half of a person and it's broken in half, it's going in the dumpster. If there's a hula hoop in there that's broken, because they're going in the dumpster. If there is no useful life to it and it's basically garbage, it's going in the dumpster. Are we okay with that? Because there will be people who will say, we're throwing away good items. That's not the case. We are throwing away obsolete, deleted, and objects that are destroyed and have no useful life. The second question is, what would you like us to do with old uniforms? And when I say old, we're talking multi-generational uniforms that we've kept. Do we have your permission to dispose of those?
I would probably say keep one of them.
Okay.
From a that way if they ever decide to do something historical, put them in a shadow box, maybe keeping one
Yeah.
of each one would be
Yeah.
good.
I second that idea. I was just going to say that, yeah.
You might want to make them available to the Black Hawk Foundation, or at least see if, Dr. Rubish sold jars of dirt from the football field. So he might be able to use it as a fundraiser. Or truly, there might be people, teachers at the elementary or middle school or something that may have need, or if we know what we have, to be able to offer it.
So you're okay with A, we'll keep a couple, because there is some good history behind it. B, that we offer them to the foundation, if they want them, to be able to resell them at a lower cost. Do you require, or will you require from me, board approval to do those actions? Or will you allow the high school staff to be able to move forward with the cleaning of that without board approval and waiting until May and June?
Yeah, I would be fine with that. And when I was saying about one, what I was thinking about is, I don't know if this was clear, not just like one of each.
Series.
It was an old, one of
Series.
each of the,
Yeah,
yes, each
yeah,
series.
absolutely.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say we have 4 generations of field hockey, keeping one of each of those 4. Yes.
Well, and I
Is that
like,
what you understood it to be? No.
No, I thought you meant like keep the generation of entire set of series that we just replaced and not worry about generations 4, 5, and 6 beyond that.
I was thinking from a historical perspective, keeping one example of each generation of uniform. So if somebody wanted to do some sort of a display that showed how the uniforms changed over the years, you'd have at least one from each one of those.
Okay, not that a team wanted to do a throwback and have a jersey for
Well, that's a
the
whole other thing.
1902 version of.
I mean, and the girls' field hockey team did do a
But we
throwback.
did do that. That's where I thought you were
Yeah.
going. I
No,
didn't
I'm not
realize it
saying
was-
that we
okay.
need, but I mean, and that's just again, I guess Dr. Fox's question is, if we want to let you guys up to doing that without our board approval, I'm fine with that. I like the idea of checking in with the Black Hawk Foundation, or, somebody like you, Jason, if you decide, hey, I like the idea of being able to do a throwback jersey, I think I'd like to keep this set, or something, you'd be able to do that. Maybe checking in with the coach.
Yes, absolutely. And that absolutely needs to occur, right? Because what is it that each head coach wants to be able to keep, and what do they use for that throwback night? Or maybe there's a need, or there's a what is it that they have never touched, don't even know why it's in there. That's, I think, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Those bags and bags that have just sat there and nobody really knows where and why, and we just kept kind of stacking them because we didn't want to throw them out. And I get it. I don't want to throw anything out either.
What about boosters? Are we keeping boosters hands off, not even entertaining that, and it's only Black Hawk Foundation? Or does Black Hawk Foundation get first dibs and then we give it to boosters, or?
I mean, I'm fine with letting boosters weigh in on it as well. I mean, in some cases, not that the boosters paid for the uniforms, but they might have had an,
And
you
what we
know.
don't want to turn into is, I don't want to turn it into municipal. Like, we do
Right.
not want to be the organization who says who wants what where, and all we do all summer is answering emails of who
Right,
wants
right.
where, what, and what. I think either the foundation can take it or not take it, and then from there, we move forward. That's my thought and take.
Okay.
But you can certainly direct me otherwise, but I just don't want our high school principal, assistant principal, secretaries to be managing who goes where and what and all of those items.
It might
Because there
be-
will people will ask, they will want them.
To kind of go along with what Leanne said, and I have a couple things. To go along with what Leanne said, if we're keeping one from each, if there was an athlete from that period of time who wore a jersey that maybe hit 1,000 points or who had some kind of special accolade, maybe that would be the number to keep, for that particular one, and then, like she said, put it in a shadow box or something like that. So I have a question. So I know the amount that we were using, we don't need to spend it. We had only planned on the 400,000. It came in double that. According to what Mr. Browse said, we're past that threshold. What is, and a lot went into kind of planning this space out. What does the district plan to do with that money? Or how do they plan to spend that money moving forward? Because what I'm hearing is it's a significant less amount that would be spent if we do the work ourselves. So then how does the district plan to spend that money moving forward? Because I think to go to a rebid, costs are only going to continue to increase.
Yeah, first of all, I think that those remaining funds are your funds for capital improvement. They're designated for projects. I think we have a significant project that we're in the process of designing and surveying right now, and it'll be really interesting to see where that comes in at, where if it's the right time and prices go down and oil prices begin to go down. Otherwise, we could see some costs spiking as well, and that's the elementary parking lot redesign. So we are kind of watching that and seeing where that comes in at. And, depending on where we are at in terms of timing to go out for bid, that could see some spikes, hopefully not, but it could. And then that will have to be a decision as to what value do we see in that project as well. So there's a value to every project and a timing to every project. Really, you don't have to do anything with those funds right now. You can hold those funds because we've met our obligation. Those funds can continue to earn a small amount of interest. And as we begin with that facilities plan, you can say that's something we should address with those funds that are available to be used. They're to be spent on capital improvement projects, not on budgetary items.
We haven't bid out the elementary school yet, though.
correct.
Yeah, I think, given the latest global events happening right now, I think some of that, is, can't let a good crisis go to waste, that might have driven some of the costs of these bids. I would be in favor, fully understanding that the bid prices may not go down, but waiting until the global situation changes, particularly with the elementary school, because that is going to be a lot of oil-based stuff there, and rebidding I'm not objectionable to still addressing the athletic space in the future. I understand wanting to do what we're doing with the drama thing right now, because that's something they've been waiting on a long time, and there's and I appreciate that we would do that right now. But I might consider rolling the dice and rebidding it later for the athletic thing.
And maybe some projects are combined.
Yeah.
But no, I certainly hear with what you're saying in terms of the elementary project, and I think we'll know more after the survey is done. And once that survey is done and the plans are designed, those are our plans. And that's our survey results, so they don't go to waste. We'll have those as well. It's just a matter of when is the best timing, and we'll rely certainly on JT and his expertise to know, is it the right time? Is it not the right time? What are we seeing, feeling, and hearing in the construction world to see if we need to pause it?
And regarding that, did we ever explore with Pannoni about the idea of taking the,
That's going to be built into that. So one of the items that came up was taking some, if we went with the redoing Susquenita Drive, that means milling up and then repaving. That would have some significant millings from both the parking lot and that drive. And what would we do with those? Well, millings make a nice parking lot, and the potential to maybe increase certain areas and capacity of our baseball field parking lot and using those millings. So that is going to be put into that as probably an alternate inside of some of the pricing. But yeah, it's to be determined where that project certainly lies right now and the timing of it. And I know they finished up surveying. They did that Thursday and Friday of last week. The survey crew was out. So you'll see certain stakes, with the ribbons. So they were doing some surveying of that area. And the progress, the elementary window replacement is, in the stairwells, is going on right now. So yeah, you kind of took the wind out of my sails for the next part, which is the next steps of the elementary replacement. No, that's good. And talked about those two steps. So just to kind of rehash some of the things that were considered is to look at keeping some examples of some of those uniforms that we pull, having a conversation with the Black Hawk Foundation as a whole to see if there's any interest and taking those uniforms, classifying those, and selling those to get money back to the foundation that benefits our students, and to your permission to dispose of anything that's damaged, broken, or has no value at all. And anything that might have any significant value that can be reused, it is our due diligence to look at that and see, is it something that we can honestly advertise on Municipid, which is a public bidding site for entities, municipalities, and school districts, and seeing if there's any value to it that somebody may pay a small amount of money for or get into a bidding war on.
Frankly, I think if you get some of that stuff out of broken down cardboard boxes and into some Rubbermaid containers, you'd be surprised at how much we could actually store in that space.
Yeah. And I know this has been brought up, and I think JT made a great point, and it wouldn't be until after our construction is done to see what the site looks like and what grass needs to be reseeded and areas that need to be repaved. But he brought up the idea of one of those construction or Connex or C boxes for the performing arts to be able to put some of their bigger items in, to be able to store that and keep some of that from multiple locations into one location. And those boxes are relatively inexpensive. They can be located out here that could be secured. So that's something that we may look at. They're roughly, depending, they could go anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000, as long as it's, in a location and that's relatively flat. That's something that they could have and to be able to use, to give them that extra storage. So that would take place after the whole construction is done, though, based upon location, because adding that right now would be too troublesome. Plus, they need some time, as they stated, to look through certain items, too, that they have that are broken that they want to get rid of, too. All right, so questions on the three construction projects? One is moving forward with the GISA. The second one is we're pivoting a little bit. And thank you, Mr. Howe, and thank you to our incredible maintenance team for adding another element of a project on top of a lot of things, and working through what that design, kind of that as-built design process is going to look like. And we'll work through where we are at with the elementary project and keep you updated as those results and surveying information comes in. All right, so we're gonna transition, and I'm gonna turn it over to a lot of members of our team here as we give an update to the goals for 25-26. We've provided a small update, I believe, early in the fall, and I think it's time certainly that we take a look and share some of the results to date, our next steps associated with the 2025-2026 collective board goals. And this team has done an incredible job of bringing to life a lot of these goals. So looking at some of the goal updates for 25-26, when we constructed these goals together last summer or last spring, I believe it was, we looked at those goals centered around our portrait of a graduate. Thanks to Mrs. Loach, she has put forth a tremendous amount of initiative and placed this portrait of a graduate where it needs to be on our public-facing website. And our goal is to continue to build out this portrait of a graduate from our curriculum aspects to our program offering aspects to what we do at the elementary level to what we do at the high school level, and then showing examples of what each are as we build out our website. So our community, all of us, have an example of what that looks like at the multiple levels. So this is our commitment, our navigational North Star. When a Black Hawk graduates, these are, besides Chapter 4, Chapter 339, these are the skills and competencies that we want our students to be able to have. That we are saying to the community, our students, this is why you want to hire a Black Hawk, because they are persistent and resilient. They are incredible and strong communicators, that they are engaged citizens, and we'll talk about how we're working to address that. They're personally responsible, and that they're innovative. And innovation looks different for a lot of different things. So looking at 25-26 collective goals, we continue to work curriculum revisions while finding ways to be more transparent of you, the board, at each level of the review process. Number 2 is to develop the concept, further develop the concepts of town hall by revisiting the process data from last year's town hall and expanding upon town hall offerings, using the data from our recent engineering studies to create a document for further short-term and long-term goals in regards to district facilities, and remain fiscally prudent by planning for future expenses while focusing on the development of systems of accountability for fiduciary expenses and accounts. So we wanted to make sure, as we had these broader goals, to really focusing on SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So I will allow and turn it over to Ms. Snyder and the team to talk about the first goal 1, which is the work on curriculum revision and finding ways to be more transparent and inclusive of the board at each level of the revision process.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. But yeah, we were, our team, which was comprised of Mr. Ward, Mrs. Walsman, and Mr. Black. So yeah, I think it was last summer where we actually were able to kind of dive in and take a look at this large collective goal that the board came up with and really tried to come up with some SMART, break it down a little bit further into a SMART goal where we were able to kind of bring some deliverables to you in this process. So really trying to kind of summarize this up without reading over it word for word for you is just that we were trying to make sure that we were able to bring complete, formal updates to you during caucus meetings. So that we've started that process. I think it was probably last August, and into the fall we've had updates, winter, and we'll have another one after this presentation on social studies. So just trying to bring those to you to keep you in the loop as to what is going on within the curriculum cycle. And just, especially as there's revisions and things that happen along the way. And then definitely trying to work on the feedback process. So we know that we started last year with some different Google forms that we've sent out to the board members, prior to looking at maps and different things. Really trying to take that a little bit further, where to continue that process, but then also really trying to survey some different stakeholder groups as well. So including the board, but then also taking a look at some student feedback and some parent guardian feedback as well on some of those things. So really, our goal was to, just to try to leverage these existing meetings to bring these updates to you, maintain that Google Doc for you guys to submit questions, concerns, and we know that that's not the only way that you can do that, but it's there for you if you need it. And then also taking a look at that relevant and time-bound piece, just making sure that, we're continuing to work with staff per that curriculum cycle, trying to get them to work through the MAP revisions, which, we can put a cycle out there, but it sometimes takes us a little bit longer, a little bit shorter amount of time, depending on the work that's being done. So really just to keep you in the loop with that, and then just making sure we're providing those formal updates. But I wanted you to see at least some of the things that we've tried to achieve this year. So along with those several curriculum updates, we've brought forth some maps, and sorry for the smaller kind of condensed picture there, just trying to show you a little bit of some of the mapping. And again, those projects, they continue on. We had some work done last year where we were working through with some of these courses and subjects and brought those forth, and then some feedback opportunities and also with the question document and the survey. So we were able to survey last November, and then this month we will also send out those surveys again to those groups just to try to solicit some feedback, really taking a look at, it was very small surveys, about 5 questions where we were asking about thoughts on transparency and what that looked like, and different course offerings, especially at the high school level where we surveyed the students as well. So I'd like to see, hopefully, with the April survey, that we get a little more engagement and maybe some more feedback compared to what we received in the fall. So that's kind of the goal and where we're at this point. And I know, obviously, in future updates, we can kind of maybe dive in a little bit to other courses, curricular areas, and give some more details as to what we've seen this year with curriculum implementations. But this is just an overall, here's where we are with our goal that we set and we worked on over the summer, and this is kind of what's going on. So that's collective goal number 1. Team, I don't know if you had anything else to add, but that's kind of just to put it in a smaller summary.
Thank you. We'll drive into goal number 2, which is further develop the concept of a town hall by revisiting the processing data from the last town hall, which occurred in 24-25, and expanding upon town hall offerings for the 25-26 school year. So I'll turn it over certainly to Mr. Page, Mrs. Bressy, and Mrs. Sabinski.
All right, yeah, so like Dr. Fox was saying, when we had the initial town hall in 24-25, we really wanted to collect student feedback and some staff feedback as well on kind of what changes we could make to make this into a greater opportunity. So 3 main points that I listed was, the first thing was they wanted to move it earlier in the school year. So the first one we had was held like in the spring, and they felt like that wasn't enough time to maybe address some of those issues. So we did move it further around the Thanksgiving holiday. They also wanted to increase student participation, and that wasn't just in the town hall itself, it was in the planning and preparation, the advertising, and the implementation of the town hall. And then the last part was, it was for the high school students, well, how could we include maybe middle school students, or at least those upper middle school students as well? So that was kind of the 3 things that we were focused on over the summer of how we could improve this for the 25-26 school year. You can move to the next slide, thank you. So what we did is we came up with we asked for volunteers. So that was the first kind of step that we did. We're like, okay, how can we get students involved? Should we handpick students? How should we get them? We're like, well, let's just see who volunteers. And we actually got a really great turnout. Turns out we had this student group of 10 to 12 across 9th through 12th grade, and 4 staff members across high school, middle school, and the district office. That really led to this like shared belonging. They were able to kind of come up with a lot of ideas for that first initial town hall. They organized everything, the students themselves. I shouldn't even give as much credit to the staff members. We were there to monitor what they were doing, but for the most part, they did everything on their own. They advertised it, they put stuff on the announcements, they made videos, they did flyers, they talked to people, they brought guests to the actual town hall. They came up with the raffle idea that we had. So all of that kind of came through the student body and that group of 10 to 12 students when we held that initial one in the fall. So then moving forward, it was going to be, well, how can we expand upon this? Should we have a second one? What should that look like? And as we're going through the data and talking with that same group of students, what they came up with is should be more of like an informal thing moving forward. So the plan moving forward is we're going to have a second town hall in the spring. It's going to look a little bit different. It's not going to be as formal. is that one that we had in the fall. It's going to be held over lunches here at the high school. And students are going to be able to kind of informally ask questions, and we're going to continue to work towards, well, what's that going to look like? How are we going to increase student participation now that it's during the school day? There's, getting rid of that excuse of, well, I can't make it after school, transportation, things like that, and also trying to get different groups involved that are here, clubs, things like that, during that time. And I can let the middle school kind of talk a little bit about their implementation of the 7th and 8th graders that kind of form their own separate committee to kind of get those upper middle schoolers involved.
I guess it's me. I don't know. I guess I do. That's my lead. Yeah, the middle school is kind of different. We don't have, 7th and 8th grade is what we use. So our process was we had applications for students to fill out, and then the grade level teachers picked them. We have about 6 students in 8th grade and 6 in 7th grade. We met Thanksgiving time, and they only had like a couple of ideas. I think it's different. They're not kind of there yet what all they want or need, so we just had a couple things which we've done one of them already for them, but we're meeting again this Friday just to see where they're at and get some more information. And I think May 6th, am I right, Dr. Fox? Around 2 o'clock, we're going to have our 3rd meeting, and that's whenever some of the board members, I think, will be available and come down and meet those kids. They do a really good job. Dr. Fox is the first one. They're very informative. They know what they want, and just kind of, like, for example, ours was a lot of stuff with the bathrooms, and even they talk about the low bathrooms. Ours, like, have gaps in the urinals, and they feel like people look at. They're not really, but it's just the gaps. Maybe close those. So just some little things, and like better lunches and stuff like that. So nothing really higher level yet, but it gets them a voice and stuff we can look into for them.
Yeah, I think they did a great job of expressing some of their concerns, and in doing so, very, very well spoken, very mature on items that were important to them. So it's going to be great, I think, to see. And I know it's during the day, so it makes it a little more challenging, obviously, for some of you to be able to come. And I do apologize about that. And we'll plan, certain future engagements. We want certainly those opportunities for you to be with the students. And I think the more we do so in a very kind of informal setting, I think will really help to kind of bring out some of those true concerns, or even some. We also don't want to just hear concerns, right? We want to hear what is working and what do we need to keep. Because one of the aspects, certainly we sit, or I sit, and I say, that's really great, but are we using that? Or is that a program we really need? And we start to maybe start to look at it or change it, and it's working. It's something that's really important to them, and that's something we want to preserve based upon their feedback. So one of the things we really want to also focus on potentially in the future, next year or moving forward, is how do we talk to alumni? How are we engaging alum? How are we engaging students that are in the workforce and in the first or second or even third year of college to identify what skills did we do well for you? And then what skills do we need to work on to be able to offer you so we prepare that next generation? Not specifics based upon a particular area you may be studying, but the broader scope. Is that executive functioning? Is that study skills? Is that organization? Is that stress management? And maybe all of those are great. Maybe not. Is it certain math classes that we may need to be able to redevelop, or co-op? How do we continue to enhance co-op? We have an incredible co-op coordinator right now who's phenomenal. How can we support her to be able to support the growth of those programs?
And I'll just say, I think most importantly is the cultural idea behind it, and the culture of this board, which is that we all collectively are putting students first, and we want everything we do is about students, has to be. And I think one of the things we desired was to be approachable by the students, to hear from the students. I mean, I don't necessarily think 7th and 8th grade is going to show us something earth-shattering that, we didn't think of, but we want to be approachable. We want them to know culture here is, from the board down, we care about kids. We want them to feel comfortable hearing from us. And I think that started last year. And I've talked to some of my peers. They're like, you invited students to just come talk to the board? That was probably crazy. I was like, no, it wasn't. So it's just to make sure that our culture is that open and transparent is the most important thing.
And I think our student reps do a great job too. And I think that, early on it was, ask a student rep, and they brought some really good questions. And then you brought those questions back and, presented those over the loudspeaker or over the announcements, or publicated those, in the morning announcement shows. So those are things we can continue to build upon, but they know who they are. And they know if they have a concern or they speak for the general population, and they're using their representative voice for the good of the student population, which is part of that engaged citizens.
I guess I just have a question. So in terms of so it looks like your middle school meeting is going to be with selected students, right? Like leadership. Well, just because they applied and then they had to be selected. Right. But it's not going to be open to any student, right? Is the high school one still going to be open to any student that wants to come and speak to the board? Because I think when we first developed this in that retreat that we had that time, it was important for us to have that opportunity for any student to be able to come and speak to us so we could have that sort of one-on-one. Or, well, you know what I mean, not smaller, but engaged with us directly, right? And so I understand middle school's a little bit different, right? Because they don't know what they don't know yet, and I get that. But I like the idea of doing it informally in the high school at lunchtime. I think the issue is that we wouldn't all be able to be there. And so I don't know where the happy medium is on that, because I like the idea of having every board member have the opportunity to be able to have that engagement, not just those of us that happen to be able to get a day off of work to be able to come. So I don't know how to, I just don't want, I don't want to lose what we had originally designed it to be. You know what I mean? I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm not sure what the happy medium is.
Yeah, I think it might be a good follow-up to the formality one that we certainly had, or the formal one. And, I think it's like a lot of things. I think that sometimes they're really good because they give that. But I think you guys, honestly, do a really good job of being present at a lot of things, whether it be events or just musicals and all the things that are involving kids within the school district and within the community. So there's a lot of approachability there as well. And I think just being able to have those opportunities for people to recognize who you are, what you do, and how is really important, for those aspects as well. But we'll just, like a lot of things too, we want to be careful on the frequency, because then it becomes almost forced rather than authentic.
And in terms of the informalness of it during lunches, how do you see that playing out? Like, will they just be able to walk up and ask? Like, what, in terms of the high school?
Yeah, so the initial idea was, the students are going to advertise it like as the informal. They're still going to have some incentives for showing up and asking, a question or just interacting at all. But yeah, it would be just as informal as they could walk down from their lunch period and ask the question or interact. Maybe we have some other things there available for them, snacks, things like that they can grab when they're there. So it's going to be kept informal since it's over their lunch and they have additional time during that. They do have the ability to, kind of have that time to walk down, ask a question, and there is some incentive for doing so as well.
I just have a question to understand how you guys are doing it in the middle school. So is it they apply to be able to participate in the town hall?
So I want to call ours a town hall, Principals Advisory Committee.
Okay.
We don't have a formal town hall like they do, but we could do something. The middle school kids, the thought behind it is not many of them are going to come back after school, and because they're 7th and 8th grade students, their parents work and they're not going to come back. So we had just sat down, Dr. Fox and I decided the Principals Advisory Committee meeting kind of represent each maybe homeroom. They have a voice, so the homeroom could come to so John Smith's my homeroom rep. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go to him. Excuse me, and I'm going to talk to Mr. Black and get my voice heard. But, we could do something on our lunches too. We'll see how it goes in the high school, because 7th and 8th grade, 7th eats by themselves, 8th eats by themselves. So if it goes well there and you guys are able to get there, we could always do, because we have a nice lobby too area. So we could always do somewhere everybody can have that feeling of their voice being heard.
Yeah, it just was concerned because I thought how I interpreted it, my perception was, is I don't want don't want it to come across that just because I don't get good grades, that I don't have a good idea and my ideas don't count, because I think that's not the intent, and I'm glad to hear that that's not how it's being used, but also thinking about how we could teach those students who, just because you don't get good grades doesn't mean you don't have good ideas, and how we can teach them how to have a voice, because that is harder.
Ours wasn't based on grades, it was based, we didn't want to just, so you don't want to just vote because then it's like a popularity contest and the same people get on it. So we wanted someone that actually wanted to be part of it, so would put some, like, the application wasn't anything earth-shattering. It was like 3 or 4 questions, right? But then someone who wanted to be a part of it, and anybody could then, the teacher read it over, if it was a thoughtful one, hey, if it's 2 kids in a homeroom, it's 2 kids. There wasn't a limit to it. But it was like, we didn't want to say, oh, let's everybody vote for your favorite homeroom person, and the student council person wins again. So we wanted everybody to be kind of represented.
No, but I totally echo. I want to hear from the student who is not being successful, behaviorally or academically, because they're the ones who are going to have ideas and things of why school's not working for them. But that's neither here nor there, but I'm just saying, maybe down the road, that's the student that I was, and that's the student I want to hear from.
Well, and I was just saying to Amy, I struggle a little bit that we have to provide an incentive for them to come and speak to us. Like I do, I mean, I get it. Like I understand that, you get 5 bonus points if you'll do this. Well, then you'll get the kids that care about their grades and maybe not somebody else. But I feel like we're enabling a generation of you need to get a gift to be able to engage in the political or in the democratic process. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't give an incentive to go to vote. Your
I
incentive is
do
you get
know.
to pay. You get, it's not an incentive, though. I mean,
I do.
I know, but you're not getting a $50 bonus.
So
Like,
understand
you know what I
completely
mean?
with what you're saying. I think there's a great book out there that Daniel Pink wrote, right? It talks about human motivation and what that looks like. I think marketing uses that all the time. Why do I shop at Giant? Well, I want the gas points, not because, no disrespect to Giant, not because I think that their prices are the most solid and it's right down the road and it's available. I want the gas points. I do it as my incentive, my motivational factor.
But to my earlier point, it's a culture, and if the culture is such that they really don't want to talk to us, that's fine. I just want them to know we are available to talk with them. Maybe we don't do this anymore. If they don't want to talk to the board and they don't have concerns or they don't feel we're not approachable, then so be it. That's fine.
Kelly Noss, Penn Township. My thought process, does the middle school and high school have a sound system in their cafeteria? That's separate from, that's not going to disturb the other classes? Yeah. Could it be that students think of questions, submit them, and then when members of the school board go, it could be like during their lunch period, the school board, hey, here's a random question or a thought that one of the students had, and then just kind of address it as a whole while they're eating? Because some kids might be afraid to approach adults that they don't know, or so it's just kind of like, and then they're not put on the spot. Oh, I went up and I talked to somebody. It could be like anonymous with what their question or concern is.
Well, I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, and I think the more, again, I think, Dr. Jones, thank you for stating that. I think it's, about just you're here for the students, and that's the why of what we do, our center point of where we are at. And it's really, when you think of it, pretty unique for a school board to develop a goal that's about engaging with kids, period. And I think that speaks to you as a collective group, to want to not just hear it, but then make changes that we can make for them. And when we think of a lot of what we are doing right now in terms of our GISA project, what we've done in terms of making some traditional changes is rooted in the conversations from the students and the feedback from the students. Now, there are going to be things that they disagree with, and that's okay. There are going to be some changes and some things that we put into place that's just what has to happen. And that's okay too. But we want to hear their thoughts, and we want to be able to disagree without being disagreeable. And that's a skill we want to teach them. That's going to bode well for them in the future. If it's okay, I'll move on to goal number 3, which is focuses on the engineering studies to create a document for future and short-term and long-term goals for our district facilities. So certainly we are working towards that, and I believe it was on October 7th of 2025, we did present to you, it was a 4-year at the time, facilities plan, and several of those items actually we were able to move forward with the GISA project. So what we need to do, and Mr. Howell and I and Mr. Browse and our team, we'll come back together in June or August of 2026 with a new updated facilities plan that includes long-term facilities plan, not just the 5 years, but what are some of those longer-term projects that are going to need to be addressed 10 years, 15 years, such as what does that look like in terms of our track? What does that look like in terms of our stadium turf project? What does that look like in terms of some of our other fields, and being able to look at that as a long-term forecast? So we were able to address certain areas throughout the ESCO project. We did look at some of those high school selected renovation designs and bids, and with your consent this evening, we're going to move forward with some of our self-renovation of those rooms, and we're looking at the elementary parking lot design that was rooted out of safety, and we're looking at future bidding process depending on what timing that our engineer says it's best to look at that time. Any questions on goal number 3? Before we move into goal number 4. Goal number 4 is to remain fiscally prudent by planning for future expenses while focusing on the development of a system of accountability for fiduciary accounts. And I know Mr. Browse and certainly Mr. Funk have done a great job and have shared some updates along the way on this, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Funk right now.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lowe, can you go to the next one? So just a few highlights and to refresh your memory, Mr. Browse and I just presented to you last month on where we've come with fiduciary. So I just put some of the highlights from last month that we have created, and we shared with you the overview of the operating procedures. Mr. Browse went through and walked you through the actual booklet he made, and we'll be using the one-page overview for the advisors. We've removed accounts that don't meet fiduciary, and we're also working on updating all the procedures and keeping everyone informed. So we're going to continue in this direction. And now that we have revisions and everything we presented last month, we can begin training students and teachers on how to operate the fiduciaries. Mr. Browse?
No, you pretty much covered it.
Okay, good, thanks.
Obviously, the long-term goal is to put it back in the students' hands. You know, that's what the fiduciary is all about. And, you know, I look forward in the future, once we get these clear guidelines set up, I look forward to, getting with some of the groups and actually working with the students and, teaching them a little bit about the finance side of their little small business that they're working on. So that's the, next step to that then.
All right, so our long-term planning is to continue to work on the goal progress. Yes, there may only be 30 or 40, a small amount of days really left in this particular school year, but a lot of work to still be done. When you look at the ending of this school year, how many activities are just jam-packed within this time frame is incredible. I love it, but it's multiple. I love going out to an event and seeing like 4 different ones at the same time. We can watch track, baseball, and look over and see softball, and at the same point, then maybe taking a couple evening events. It's incredible. It's awesome. It's a great time of the year, but it is a very busy time of the year. And then we're going to look at future goals. Maybe there's some goals we want to continue to build off. Maybe there's some goals we want to retire, and some new ones we want to put forth and put forward, and be able to kind of drive or refocus and and certainly refresh. So excited about the future. Excited about continuing to work on these throughout. And excited about the next steps and continuing collectively to build the next set of goals for the 26-27 school year. So thank you.
I just had a thought. I know you had asked us all to send to you ideas that we have to possibly work at a board retreat on some goals. I don't know if there would be an opportunity, but it might be a good idea to just reach out to staff and ask them for input on what they think should be some of the goals for the board, so that we would hear from them, have them try to inform us on maybe some of the next goals. Because I'm happy and proud to say, because this board works so well together and because of Dr. Fox and the admin team, we've really tackled a lot of things at times when I felt like the ship was sinking. I don't feel that way anymore. So it would be, now that I think we've uprighted the ship, it would be great to just get some feedback from staff.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, so our last presentation for this evening is we want to talk a little bit about social studies curriculum sequence, scope and sequence, projected. It's still very high level right now, so I want to phrase that by saying some work that's been done, some sequence and next steps, looking at, kind of beginning that process in 26, 27, refreshing, allowing time to build, allowing time to material collect for implementation of 27, 28 school year. So I'm going to turn it over to our incredible team. I love the social studies. I love the sequence. I love looking at the different units. It's really tough when you think about it. What do we need to cut? What do we need to keep? And what do we need to create when there's so much? And it's exciting. But the focus on how and what can we do to ensure that we're producing engaged citizens? That's the goal. And I think with our sequence, we're meeting that goal.
Awesome. So to get started, so some great social studies brains working on this plan that we're going to share with you. So just to kind of give you just a high-level view of what we've been working on this school year per the curriculum cycle, we've been trying to tackle some of those current social studies courses. And this is where we've actually kind of been tackling starting with 7th and 8th grade at the middle school, and then taking a look at some of those high school courses as well. And you guys know this is a work in progress. It takes multiple meetings, multiple months to try to work through a lot of this. So these revisions are still ongoing. Teams are meeting, we're hopeful, at the end of this month, and then some summer, trade days as well, trying to work through some of this. So to kind of get us up and current, to start the school year would be the goal for these courses. But really, as Dr. Fox was saying, just kind of this has spurred a lot of discussion as to where we're going with the course sequencing for social studies, and taking a look at that even, starting in 4th grade and what that looks like, that progression. So really, when we bring all of this up, this is something that's going to take a little bit, to work through and to get into place, but looking at that change for the 27-28 school year. So what we've tried to show and kind of throw up there for you, it's a lot. Just where, the team kind of went with some of these courses and where we see these things falling. Taking a look at 4th grade, looking at social science, just very specific units that we can work through. In 4th grade, the 5 themes: school citizenship, local government, intro to American government, and famous Americans project. So just trying to start that process in 4th, where we know that time is limited to really dig into social studies. So it's nice also to kind of maybe look at that, kind of putting those units maybe with ELA and trying to look at those things as well as we build. But 5th grade, definitely looking at PA history and trying to break that down a little bit, and taking a look at different maps, historical evidence, the first Pennsylvanians, formation of Pennsylvania, colonial daily life, French and Indian War, introduction to basics of the American Revolution. So trying to fit all of those things in there. And as we quickly found out, American history, it's a lot. So trying to figure out, that progression and where to start that, with 6th grade maybe being that American History 1, where we're able to kind of dig into some of those units, the indigenous peoples of North America, European exploration, early contact, colonial America, and then the road to the American Revolution. And then really jumping in 7th grade and making that more of the world cultures course. Okay, because right now, students are seeing that at the high school level, maybe bringing that down into 7th grade and really taking a look at some of those units like geography skills, math basics, culture and human systems, North America, different areas of the world, North America, Latin America, Europe, Africa, Southwest Asia. You can see them all listed there. And then definitely taking a look at global issues and connections as well. And then 8th grade, American history too. That's kind of what we tackle right now. And, you know, really just looking at units, you know, the road to the American Revolution, you know, that building a new nation, the early republic, expansion and reform, you know, taking a look at the road to the Civil War itself, and then the Reconstruction era. And then really, we wanted to make sure to bring up the fact that right now what we're doing is we have civics exposure in the middle school and in the high school. So right now our 7th grade course does consist primarily of civics material. And those students that have that in 7th grade then are taking the civics assessment that the state does require us to give. So really in looking at this sequence and kind of throwing some ideas together, we really see this being more of a 9th grade course that we're able to offer at the high school that all students would take, and really moving that information to that grade level. So you can see where we would still talk, you know, and we're still offering that today. They have multiple exposures to it, but really focusing in on the 9th grade, and then in 10th grade picking back up with that American History 3, or AP US History, if students want to take that course as well. Really just looking at that Civil War reconstruction to modern day. And then 11th grade, we'd also like to introduce a new course since World Cultures. We're kind of moving that content to the middle school, really taking a look at something called Modern World History, which would be 1750 to present day, that early industrial revolution to modern day. So you can see where we're kind of like moving and shifting some things. It's going to take time to build those courses over time, but really trying to look at getting this sequence put into place for 27, 28. And then we also have, our students have many electives that they're able to take as well, like PA history, they have more exposure to that, psychology, sociology. Even in 12th grade, they can take those courses if they wish, even looking at psychology 2 as well as an added option. So yeah, the course sequencing change, it's definitely a beast. And like I said, there's some great minds that went into, you know, kind of talking about this, and everyone got very animated and excited, you know, putting all of this together. And I'm sure there's more that, you know, we'll need to go into this and that we're, you know, needing to revisit. But I think it's a great start to the work for that. So that's where we're at right now. And really just, you know, trying to continue that curriculum work. Obviously, we're going to continue to refine the current courses and making sure the students are, you know, getting those updates, but really starting to develop that modern world history course. And there's the work that needs done in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade courses as well. So that's where we're headed with social studies.
I have a question, maybe, or just a thought. First of all, I love the focus on civics and American history. I noticed that we're kind of pulling out the economics part, right? So that's no longer would be offered, correct? Like that part that's being done in civics and economics in junior year now, right?
And I don't know that we would take, I mean, that could be a piece that is put in there as well. Like you're talking with the units that we're proposing right now in 9th grade
Yeah,
civics.
no, I'm okay with having a class focused on
Like a
civics.
separate focus.
Yeah, do we have an economics class? That's just a thought. And then my other thought is, the world cultures is fine, 7th grade. I'm wondering, is there a way to, not just world history, which is different than world cultures, right? Like, I just think about sort of the current modern day events that are happening, and is 7th grade so far removed from the cultures of the world that are, you know, tied into
all those global issues.
Global
and,
issues,
yeah, those connections.
right, that are
'cause I know
beyond
that's a part of
just-
that course and wanting to talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's different from history, world history, right? You know, where you might have World War II and, you know, whatever, that's not the same as world cultures. And I'm wondering, is there a separate class, elective class even, that could be offered in world cultures, so.
I was thinking the same thing, like world religions,
Yeah,
Islam.
that's what I think under world
know.
cultures, yes.
And I think that was brought up at a town hall, too. One of the students said they wanted to know more about
maybe.
world religion and culture.
But yeah, the whole world cultures and world religions and
I mean, it really is
Judaism
tied
and
a lot
Muslims
in,
and
right.
Hindu. Yeah, I think that's really important at the high school level somewhere. And I wasn't thinking economics, but I never had economics in high school, and I was at a loss when I got to college. It would be nice if our kids had an opportunity to be introduced to economics and world cultures at the secondary level. As you said, and this is all amazing, thank you, it's such a vast, social studies is so vast.
Well, and that's, I think, when the team even got together and talking about, it is, it's hard, to put that into that sequence and make sure you're covering those major things that you want to cover
I'm not
in
sure
those
I know what
courses.
what is it, modern?
Modern, the world history, the
Yeah, I'm not
11th,
sure that I know what that is. Maybe with some tweaking, modern,
that maybe,
modern, I don't know what modern world history, modern is present and history is past. Modern,
Well, I
I'm just
think,
not
I think
sure,
they're
don't know.
talking about things like the French Revolution, like world history outside of just American history in that time frame from 1750
I
to the
see.
present.
Yeah, when you're talking the Industrial Revolution, that modernization and how that shifted, and from that modernization of point, how the world began to change and how that evolved. And, I think you make a great point about cultures, and I think you can take cultures in history, and I think those two can be intertwined together very deliberately as you begin to talk about a particular region and what are some of the cultures, and you look at the political, social, and economic aspects of those particular cultures in that region, in that area, and then what is driving some of those forces today. And the nice part is, there are some current events newsletters that we subscribe to, and we use those throughout, especially at the elementary and here at the middle school as well. So being able to take those current events articles, focusing on the themes of geography, where is that location, what is happening, in terms of what does it mean in these particular titles or groups, and using that to help steer. One of my favorite classes that I had in college was called History in the Headlines, probably because I adored the professor, but it was about taking a look at what's happening and the history behind each one of those aspects of what's going on. So I don't think it has to be and or. I think it can be combined together. You may not get to the breadth and depth, but I think that's where, if we look at certain electives in the future, that's where some of that depth can go into because you might have the foundation.
Right, and I appreciate combining them together. I think my concern would be it is so broad that you would not get the depth. And I am wondering if maybe instead of modern world history, it should go back to rebuilding on the world cultures from 6th grade. And instead of focusing on the history part and kind of bringing in the culture, focus on the culture, which will then by default talk about the history of what's going on in those areas.
But I don't think you can separate them out like they're distinct things. Like even when I look at we're just American history too is up there. Like if you're looking at like the road to the American Revolution, you're going to talk about the culture, the historical things that happened and the economics that all happened around that time period from 1763 to 1775. You can't, to me, I don't think you can separate them out as 3 separate entities because they're all interrelated, like even around the American Revolution. I mean, certainly I'm sure you could if you chose to just teach, about the American Revolution and not about what was happening culturally at that time or what was happening economically at that time. But it would make more sense if it was being taught that you were teaching all 3 of those things because all 3 of them are interrelated as to what affected that time period when you're teaching about American history.
I agree. I think that there is a main focus and then the other things can dovetail in as opposed to we're going to teach about all 3 at the same time. Like, I think if you look at, say, for instance, the war of Gaza, whatever. If you focus in on culturally what the aspects of Judaism and Israel and what happened with that, you can't separate out some of the historical things that happen and everything else. But I think if the focus is on the cultural part, then you bring in the others. If the focus is on the history part, then you might, complement with the others. But I still think there needs to be a theme of the main focus of it. And is it going to be more a world cultures, or is it going to be more world history? I think that's what I'm saying. I agree. You're still going to have the intertwined parts.
I think with the internet and everything else, the way we teach now in every subject is different. You can look up the internet and find the timelines of different wars and different things that happened. But to understand the ideology behind it and the things that were going on and thinking and problem solving and reasoning, and even to be able to predict that into current events and be able to see what's going on, and in your mind thinking, this is going to end up in a war or whatever. Getting kids to actually think and problem solve about how all those fractions work together is how we need to be teaching anyway, ultimately, because they can just look dates up on the internet. I think we're all kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But just more of a need for that to be woven in at the high school. And the only other thing I will say is I'm hoping we spent a little time figuring out what is taught in social studies at the career and technical school, so that if our students start at the career and technical school and take social studies there and then come back here, or vice versa, that there's not overlap.
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing is maybe bring some of that back to the committee for some discussion on maybe tweaking a few things.
Sounds good. Absolutely. I think this was the first kind of glance at it, and we'll continue to look at that course sequence. And like any sequence, it's, can be malleable based upon, and we know that oftentimes there are mandates that come through as well. And sometimes those mandates or laws need to be woven in different aspects throughout also. But really, it comes down to how do we want that progression? And Dr. Jones, I couldn't have said it better. It's about the application. How are we teaching it? How are we using certain documents, and to be able to drive those document-based questions for that critical thinking element, where that information, the facts are the facts are the facts, but how are we taking those facts to make predictions, to critically think, and to be able to analyze, and then to be able to write, persuasively, or to be able to write creatively based upon those aspects of what's happening. So cool stuff when you think of, the social sciences, social studies, and all of those aspects, associated with it. It's pretty neat.
If I may, if you go back to Portrait of a Graduate, no portrait of a graduate, and I've seen portraits of a graduate in a lot of schools. None of them say they need to know a certain amount of math. They need to know, they need to be able to describe, what wars happened before, whatever. It's about problem solving. It's about being creative. Yep. It's about working together, and approaching social studies from that standpoint. That's lack of all that created some of the wars and some of the created history.
Yeah, but I also like the fact that our Portrait of a Graduate says that they need to be engaged citizens. And you can't do that if you don't understand your government and you don't understand.
Which is why we have civics.
Yes, no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean, that's why I think the way that this is being built is
Very good.
reflective of our Portrait of a Graduate.
And civic opportunities, when you think of those, the civic opportunities, the opportunities for, which doesn't always happen in school districts, to be able to have board representatives sit and to be able to be a part of it. And it's not just about their reports, but they're active participants. And you ask them questions. What does this mean to you? How does this affect you? And then they take that information back to their peers. And both of you have done an incredible job of selecting some incredible students who are willing to speak freely, politely, to be able to add elements to it. And that is a huge value when you think of those engagement exercises to practice citizenship. I'm super proud to see how many Eagle Scouts that we have coming through as well when we think of that, and how can we continue to support those broader aspects of social studies the voter registration and drive that we did and those awareness, the opportunities to work at the tavern for, in Duncannon and with the Historical Society to be able to engage in local history. All of those aspects are incredible when you think of that ability to be able to be engaged and be a part of it and to know not only, world, but history here and how this area was so impactful for America 250, right? With our upcoming celebration, 250 years of the United States, and how we here within this area played a huge aspect in the forming of this nation. It's awesome. And our students being a part of that, which is even really cool. Cooler. More cool? Yeah. All right, that kind of sums up all of the presentations for this evening. Pretty heavy stuff, but good stuff, and I appreciate all of your involvement and active participation. Now I'm going to lend it to any live public comments before we have one that is on paper. All right, so we have one comment that came in from a Brandy Mazzaro from Watts Township, and the comment is, my name is Brandy Mazzaro, and I have had children attending SSD for 12 years. In all of those years, my biggest complaint has been transportation. From a lack of communications to late arrivals to having a new mystery driver that I'm just supposed to trust is a Royer employee to late departures, I am at my patience with Royer. They've pushed out several very good and reliable bus drivers with their abysmal pay and benefits. And who suffers from Royer's greed? The children and parents of SSD. I am urging Susquenita School Board to consider contracting with an alternative company for the 26-27 school year and beyond. So we certainly appreciate the comments. We try to provide as much transportation updates as we can. And I think the principals have done an incredible job, as well as our coordinator of transportation at our district office. And I think more specifically this year, more than ever, as soon as we get that information, that's being sent out, from a down tree to trying to rework what that looks like, to even being focused on who does that impact and communicating with that particular family or families that's being impacted. We're not perfect. Transportation is not perfect. Traversing, 91 square miles of territory and topography, when we think of geography, right? There's a ton of different elements that could play into it. In terms of drivers and changes of drivers, I hear that. Our drivers are some of the first people and last people that are representatives of our school, while they're not our employees or representatives of our school, that they see every day. And they do a really good job of providing for that, more so than ever. And our supervisor of transportation that works for Royer has done a great job of that as well. Each of them should have an ID. Whether that ID is being worn, because it probably isn't, on themselves because of operating a steering wheel and getting tangled up, it is somewhere in that bus, whether it be right there that's visible or having some type of that identification is being displayed, and we will follow up to ensure that that is in the bus somewhere for that to have a visual representation, so when those students enter, they can see that. In terms of pay, in terms of those things, that is what we all experience, right? Inflationary cost, how do we handle that? How do we make sure that we're competitive in terms of how is Royer being competitive to maintain, recruit, and obtain the best drivers possible for our students? That's what we ask. That's what we contract with them for. They are a partner that's located within our school district. They are one of the largest employers in Perry County. And, it is our responsibility to ensure that they're following all elements, of a contract. And I think they've been a pretty solid partner with us. And we will continue to work with them. I know anytime a principal has a question, that responsiveness has increased dramatically. And that's what we expect. And they can expect that back from us as well. So thank you for the comment. All right, if there are no other comments or nothing else to add, we will see everybody Tuesday, April 14th. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.